All right, let's get started. Jon Clements here. Today is Tuesday, August 25th, 2020. Welcome to my Apple Harvest Open House Hour at noon on Tuesdays. I have a short presentation for you before we get started, but rather than being in my office today, I just want to let you know I'm over here in the lab at the UMass Orchard. And behind me is Wayne Green's messy desk. I know he's on this recording, and I'll probably say it's not that messy. Actually, it's not half as messy as my office. It's good to know. So anyways, I've got a presentation here I'll run through, and then we can open up the meeting to questions or comments. So let me navigate to my screen sharing here and share this screen. And bring this up to the present mode. And my pointer on here if I can. First of all, I get this email from MeteoBlue every morning, kind of with a quick graphical snapshot of the weather. Here we are on Tuesday, a little bit of showers predicted maybe this afternoon with the front moving through. But Thursday and Saturday, it looks like we're supposed to have some showers and some rain. And the point being, we've got some retain application window here, particularly coming up for Honeycrisp and Gala. Maybe Macintosh. You probably don't want to be putting retain on when it's going to rain. It needs to thoroughly dry and have a good shot with the surfactant to dry and have some uptake to work properly. So be careful if you're going to put retain on that you don't do it during a period of wet weather or showers. Some dry weather, and I think we maybe turned the corner on this drought situation. We did have 3 inches of rain in Belchertown Sunday, but I know not everybody had that kind of rain. So I did want to take a little talk about retain, in particular on Honeycrisp and Gala. This is from a write-up that Dwayne Green did a few weeks ago in Healthy Fruit. And he's worked with retain on Honeycrisp over the years and feels quite strongly that there's a couple of scenarios where it can be used. As you know, Honeycrisp can exhibit pre-harvest drop, often before the color becomes red enough to pick. But Honeycrisp is also very sensitive to retain, which helps with the drop situation. However, Honeycrisp also exhibits this color drag when retain is applied. So because it's very sensitive, we only use a half rate typically on Honeycrisp. One strategy for drop control is to let some red color come on. It's starting to come on now. And then apply retain at a half rate plus NAA, Frutone or Pomax or whatever, at 4 ounces per 100 gallons dilute tree row volume 2 weeks before harvest. Now, I'm thinking we'll be picking Honeycrisp starting the end of the second week, the beginning of the third full week in September. So right now we're out about, coming up the end of this week, 2 to 2.5 weeks before harvest. So probably later this week or very early next week, this weekend will be some time to get retain on with this half rate strategy to prevent drop. Now many of you are also pick your own orchards. And he also promotes what I call the pick your own strategy or retain on Honeycrisp 2, strategy 2. 2 options here. Apply 2 full rates of retain at normal Macintosh timing, which would be right about now. However, I think both Dwayne and I would agree that that's probably not the best thing to do. A heavy rate of retain can really slow down color development on Honeycrisp. You might end up in a little bit of trouble there if you need to get some early off the trees because they'll be green still. For example, if you've got customers who want them. Alternately, you could do a full rate now. That's 1 pouch per acre. And another full rate in approximately 2 weeks, which would be 1 to 2 weeks before normal harvest. Don't forget that retain has a 7-day pre-harvest interval. If you do this, you'll keep the fruit on the trees. And once we get some really good coloring weather by mid to late September, the red color will come on nicely and you can still have Honeycrisp on your trees that first weekend in October into early October for Columbus Day, et cetera, when you really have the big pick your own crowds out there with little drop. I've seen this before. The color will really come on nice. They're beautiful Honeycrisp if you can keep them on the trees into early October. If you need more information on this PYO strategy, strategy number 2, you can look up the article that Dwayne wrote in UMass Fruit Notes, umassfruitnotes.com. It's the summer 2018 issue. So those are 2 strategies you can use for using retain on Honeycrisp. Let's talk about Gala briefly. I'm not sure really. I mean, I think some people are using retain on Gala. Gala doesn't drop, but it will turn greasy, and you'll get some stem end splitting if left to get too mature on the trees. Gala, like Honeycrisp, is also sensitive to retain. We generally recommend a half rate. I'd say the timing on that is now or very soon, within the next week, similar to Honeycrisp. Again, I think we'll be picking Gala the 2nd and 3rd full weeks in September. You could try that full rate application twice, but again, I think a half rate, a split half rate application will keep the fruit sound and allow color to develop. You won't get the greasiness and stem end splitting. You can't leave them on the trees forever, like you think you can do Honeycrisp to a certain extent. But it will keep the fruit in much better shape, not greasy, and without stem end splitting. Okay. Let's talk about what I looked at in terms of apple maturity this week. These are apples I collected yesterday at the UMass Orchard in Belchertown. Keep in mind that Belchertown is kind of a medium to warm site. I mean, we're slightly ahead of some orchards. A lot of orchards east of here in the coastal plain we're about on par with. So, however, if you go into the Berkshires, the hill towns, you're going to be delayed a week or so, or say half an hour north of here up on the Route 2 corridor. Zestar, you know, it's a really nice apple. They're looking really good right now. I feel that they should be picked over the next week in general. All those numbers, the firmness, the DA index, bricks, soluble solids, starch index are in a nice range there, and I think they're getting good flavor. I would be picking them during this coming week. Sansa here, you should have already picked or be picking. They're going to go over the hill pretty quick now, especially with the warm weather we've been having, and I suggest getting those off the trees ASAP. One thing about Sansa, we've noticed a lot of cork spot on it this year, so I think the crop's a little rough. It's not an easy apple to grow properly, but it's a good, sweet, Gala-type early apple. Ginger Gold, you know, look nice on the trees. They're rather green looking still. I think they need another week. They don't starch test well. They'll still be a starch test of 2 next week. That DA over 1 indicates to me there's a lot of chlorophyll in the skin still, and they're rather green. So I think I would say that Ginger Gold is a Labor Day apple. I think they need to be on the trees another week for them to be good quality, acceptable now maybe, but good or much better in a week. Paula Red, you know, old-fashioned late summer, early fall apple. Makes nice applesauce. They should be picked. The crop we have here again in Belchertown is pretty rough this year. Some trees have no fruit. Some trees have lots of clustered up fruit. Frankly, to me, it's Paula Red's, you know, kind of, I'm trying to think of the old school. I think we have much better new varieties such as Zestar, perhaps Sansa, Ginger Gold, one I'm going to talk about next. There was quite a bit of water core in these Paula Reds too. Oh, yeah, so Connie. Connie's interesting. It gets really bright red early. I did pick some this week and test them. They're clearly not ready. They can be a little deceiving. They did look green in the background color. I'd say they need to wait another week. I knew that. I just wanted to test them to see where they stand. And then just this morning, I got some info on how Dwayne thinks about it, Connie, the world according to Dwayne. I already mentioned it develops red color early. It's not a good indicator of optimum maturity, though. He says wait until the starch index is 8. I say maybe 7 to 8. That means there's virtually no starch left. You know, this starts to happen the first week in September, but Dwayne kind of said around here anyways, he thinks typically it's September 8th or 9th. And even when it gets up to that starch index of 8, it will store good for 6 to 8 weeks. And I haven't tried it yet, but I hear it makes a good apple pie apple. Connie makes a really good apple pie. You can try that someday soon. All right, Premier Honeycrisp. These are definitely coming along. I've got a few here, and I'll talk about these a little bit more. Again, these numbers, red color, firmness, bricks, soluble solid, starch index, a DA of 0.3 on average is actually quite low. Usually you like to pick Honeycrisp about 0.40 to 0.60. So I think Premier Honeycrisp, that's an early ripening Honeycrisp. They say up to 3 weeks before normal Honeycrisp. Needs to be harvested ASAP on color. We'll need multiple pickings. And I would try and finish up those over the next week. Hopefully you'll get enough color on them. Now, Honeycrisp will still eat good without adequate color, but they become harder to sell. Don't have as much eye appeal. Although I think Honeycrisp, the name says it all. People really like that apple. And finally, I've got these MAIA-SMs tested as MDD 7-50. MAIA is the Midwest Apple Improvement Association. I'm testing quite a few varieties for them, and they're going to release this one as a named variety once they come up with a name for it. The interesting thing about this is it hangs really well on the tree. I think, you know, these could start to be picked now. It's a very sweet apple. I think it's like a subacid peach. It has very little acid and eats sweet. It's very firm. So you can see testing 22 pounds right now. They claim it'll hang in the tree really well. So I think over the next week to 2 weeks, you can pick these. It's very attractive, bright red. I have a couple of them here. You can see how deep red it is and pretty much fully red. Eats very well. I've tried a few. And I still think they could probably use another week to develop better variety flavor. But keep an eye on that one. I'm sure you'll be seeing something coming out. They were going to try and, the SM, I asked them what it stood for. They said Sweet MAIA. I think they were going to call it Sweet MAIA for MAIA, but there's a trademark issue there. So we'll see, but keep an eye on that one. I think it'll be a really nice early apple for us prior to the majority of the Honeycrisp season. The majority of the Gala and Macintosh season will come just before that. So I think that's all I had on my slideshow. I did want to take a minute. To show you kind of what a few of my tools here that I go through for my testing procedure. And this will be a little awkward, but I can point my computer down here. You know, I have a firmness tester where I can take the apple to test the firmness. I have the DA meter here, which before I do the firmness testing, I check and see what they are, and I can actually run that through for you here. We can boot up the DA meter. And I think it doesn't work well on Macintosh type apples, but Gala, Honeycrisp, Golden Delicious, any apple that has a tendency to have a background color change, the DA meter works really good on. So let's see what these, let's see what this Premier Honeycrisp is shooting. 0.26, we do 2 sides of the fruit and it automatically averages it for me. 0.50 for an average of 0.38. So that one is right there in the peak of when it can be picked. I'm going to try one in a minute here and tell you what I think, because that's the other thing you can do is just try it and see if it eats good. So the firmness testing, the DA meter, I do collect some juice when I'm doing the firmness testing and do bricks or soluble solids with this little digital refractometer. And then I spray some starch iodine solution on them, and I should have brought that over with me, but use a Cornell starch chart to give it a starch index rating. So that's kind of the procedure I go through. Let me cut this Premier Honeycrisp open now and see how it's tasting. I think you can see the seeds are pretty brown there. Oh yeah. I mean, that has a classic Honeycrisp variety flavor. So these Premier Honeycrisps truly are 2 to 3 weeks before regular Honeycrisp. The MAIA-SM, shouldn't call it MAIA yet. Just kind of curious to cut one of those open. See, the seeds are pretty brown. Very firm, not even the skin, but very mild subacid flavor. Not at all tart, but very firm. Very sweet. Let it ripen a little bit more, and I think that'll be a nice apple. So with that, I'm going to stop recording and open the Apple Harvest Open Office Hour up to questions or comments, and I'll post this presentation to YouTube without the comments or questions, because who knows how that'll go, and hope to see you all again next week. Thank you for joining us.